recording, and audio's getting all kind of crazy on us, but whatever. We're gonna do it live. Who cares? Nope, we're good. We're good. I don't care. Let's do it. Larry, I don't know if you noticed, but I made an Area 51 sweatshirt. I designed it and I had it printed on. It's alien. The pocket is the 1947 newspaper from Roswell, and on the cuffs. Yeah.
Did you go out there to get it, or did you order it?
Oh, I designed it.
You designed it?
Yeah, I taught myself graphic design over like 3 years, and I designed this like a year ago, finished it up this year, and I just kind of had it sitting on my computer for a while, and then I got some latent inspiration and decided to. It got Bob Lazar on it. Yeah, hold on.
Oh, damn.
Yeah.
Well, you're very talented.
Thank you, sir. It's I got a bunch
You
of.
got Bob Lazar on the back of it?
Yeah.
Oh, Bob.
Yeah, Bob Lazar. And then on the front, I got the grays. And, yeah, got the area. I scanned the area. I got a high-resolution scan of the Roswell newspaper. And that's the pocket.
That look good.
Yeah, so you can actually read the article on the, just as it was in 1947. But,
you didn't put the piece of the telegram or whatever it was that Blanchard was holding in his hand that what was that in Texas, in Fort Worth, at I forget what air base that was. It was home of the 8th Air Force. Anyway, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, no, I did this one as I did it and kind of put it away for like a year. But yeah, so for everybody listening, this is Larry Holcombe, author of Presidents and UFOs. One of my three favorite UFO books. That's Unacknowledged and UFOs, Generals and Government Officials by Leslie Kean. Those are my three go-to UFO books. Everybody listening, will be in the description and will be sticky in the top comment. It's an awesome listen on Audible. But yeah, I don't remember. Actually, let's just get into it. So you sent me the link last week of former head of Israeli space program saying,
"Oh yeah,
yeah."
Well, that's what I wanted to. I thought it'd be good to discuss some current events.
Yeah.
But I sent that link to you, didn't I?
Yes, sir.
It's hard to say how to read these things. Whether we're dealing with disinformation or what.
Mm-hmm.
But there's one thing for sure: things are happening faster and faster and faster.
Yeah.
In this with this topic. So I don't know. I don't trust anything until it's pretty well proven.
Yeah.
But that seems pretty responsible, and it was it was reported on NBC News, and but as usual, none of the other, maybe Fox Network has, but none of the other major networks have picked up on it.
Yeah.
They're still beyond me to understand why and how they can still be treating the subject of UFOs or UAPs or whatever you want to call them now. I like flying saucers myself, but anyway, they just ignore it. And I was watching, it must have been the History Channel the other day. I was watching the rerun of, now I forget what the title of the show was, but anyway, it was a modern show, and it had Nick Pope going to interview at Fox News. You gotta help me again. I'm terrible with names.
Nick Fox.
Tucker Carlson.
Tucker Carlson, sure.
So he was interviewing Tucker Carlson, and it was a great interview. So Fox News is the only one that's, and Tucker Carlson in particular, are the only ones in major news today that are doing anything to try to dig in at least a little bit into the UFO issue. Now, with the crazy political climate that's been going on, I can imagine that it's very hard for them to talk about UFOs now when you've got all this other crap flying around.
Yeah.
But that was, if you haven't seen it, it was a History Channel, and I don't know what episode it was, but it had to do with UFOs, current UFO sightings. And so Tucker Carlson is doing a good job on it.
Yeah.
Anyway, but as far as this Israeli thing, that's really all we know is what this general said.
Yeah.
And then the piece that you sent me on, well, the first thing was on the this guy that started off saying he was a general, and I can't remember his name. He looks good and he comes across pretty well, but I found out that he was.
Yeah. That's. I can pull up his name right now. I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, he was a general in the North Carolina militia or something like that.
Yeah. It was.
Wasn't a general in the army.
Yeah, Brigadier General Lovekin, Stephen Lovekin. Yeah. Brigadier General Lovekin entered the military in 1958. 1959, he joined the White House Army Signaling Agency and served under Eisenhower and Kennedy. But I remember I sent that to you. Yeah, you said you did some research, and he's not the most credible.
In my opinion, when I watched the interview again that you sent, I had seen that about a couple of years or so before that. May have been longer than that. I don't know, because I put it out of my mind after I found out what he was. And so his responses, when I looked at it again with the new knowledge that I had, he was not really evasive, but he wasn't crisp on a lot of things that he said. It was almost like he was making it up as he went along.
Sure.
So anyway, that's enough of that. But what was the other one that you sent me that I wanted to talk about?
Which one? Not General Lovekin, not Israeli special or former head of Israeli space program. Jacques Vallée on Joe Rogan.
Yeah.
Battelle Memorial Institute. Yeah, that was
that was extremely interesting.
Yeah.
And I went back. Now, you've read my book, right?
Yes, sir. Twice.
Huh?
Yeah, twice. Twice.
Well, I mentioned Battelle Memorial Institute.
Yes.
In the book.
Yes.
I don't go into any detail.
Yeah.
But how Battelle was involved originally, to the best of my knowledge, and that may be incorrect now from what Jacques Vallée is saying, and I certainly would say that you'd be pretty well able to take what Vallée says to the bank.
Yeah.
Because I think he's no nonsense. I think he's a true scientist.
Sure.
in working on this in a true scientific manner, as others have done. But Vallée certainly has credentials.
Yeah.
So when he says, well, let me back up. It was my understanding that Edward Ruppelt Captain Edward Ruppelt, who was the first head of Project Blue Book. When Blue Book was set up, Ruppelt came in, took over or started Blue Book, and he went to Battelle. Now, why that was, and it could be that the Air Force had prior dealings with Battelle. But Ruppelt went to Battelle and got them to make in-depth studies of UFOs, or probably call them flying saucers then.
Mm-hmm.
And they did. It took them 2 years to do it.
Mm-hmm.
They studied 3,201 cases, I believe, if my numbers are right. 3,201 cases. And they finally issued their Blue Book Special Report 14, although 2 years later, or so later. And actually, Ruppelt had just left Blue Book, and some others came in and took over. But Ruppelt was the best at running Blue Book because he really wanted to run it as a research part of the Air Force.
Yeah.
And the later people, especially Quentin Hectornello, was nothing but a cover-up artist. And that's what Blue Book became, just a propaganda tool of the Air Force. But anyway, Battelle came out with their report. Now, it was my understanding that Battelle was primarily just a think tank. But what I found out that they're far more than a think tank. They invent things. They develop things. They have their tentacles spread into, seems like hundreds of different areas.
Yeah.
So, and that surprised me when I found out that they were more than a very highly respected think tank, which they are, but they are far more than that, apparently.
Yeah.
Well, they came out with this 1,000 page report. Well, you probably know all of this, but anyway, for
the listeners, yeah.
For people watching.
Special report, was it 14?
That the report was full of charts and graphs and all sorts of statistics. So Donald Quarles was, at the time, was Secretary of the Air Force. And he decided that the report was too lengthy at 1,000 pages, that the Air Force couldn't afford to print it and distribute it. Now, that may be the truth.
Sure.
I won't find fault with that. But he held a press conference. And in his press conference, he said the Air Force has studied this subject of flying saucers or UFOs for over 2 years now, in depth. And this is what we found out. And he never mentioned Battelle Memorial Institute. He just made it sound like the Air Force had done it. And we studied 3,201 cases. And of those 3,201 cases, we could only come up with 3% that were unidentified. And of those 3%, it was the worst data, the most inconsistent data, and the worst witnesses that we could have. Okay, press took it as usual and ran with it. Now, when the Air Force Special Report 14 became available as it has, and it's on YouTube. If anybody cares to take a look at it in depth, what it actually says in very condensed version, that in fact it was not 3% that were unexplained. It was 21.5%. And as my good friend Stanton Friedman used to say, it's pretty hard to round off 21.5% to 3%, or vice versa.
Yeah.
Then they went on to say, and they had a chart, on these pages. Everything was charted out. And it went into a lot of detail. But the bottom line was the 21.5% had absolutely the most qualified witnesses and the best documented evidence of any of the sightings. In other words, the Air Force did what it always does. They lied. They lied through their teeth.
Yeah.
So that was Patil Memorial Institute, and that was my first knowledge of it. And of course, I write about that in the book. I don't go into great detail, but I write about it in the book. But the Air Force continued to shoot itself in the foot many times later. But Patil had done this report. It's excellent. Anybody that's really interested in goes online, Air Force Special Report 14. It's right there. All the charts and graphs and everything.
Yeah.
And what they've written out.
Yeah.
So then I find out from, and I haven't watched that either. I've listened to it, but I haven't been able to find the video on Joe Rogan's.
Oh, it's because he moved to Spotify, and starting on December 1st, his contract stipulated that no new episodes would go up on YouTube. It's terrible. You can't watch them on YouTube, and you can't watch the new ones on YouTube. It's shitty. It's, excuse my French, but it's...
Where did that come from?
The video, like, where did what come from?
The fact that they changed.
Well, he got a contract with Spotify for $100 million. $1/10 billion. He got a contract to come over to Spotify and to exclusively upload his work there. Which, I mean, if you're looking for an excuse, $100 million, that's an awful good excuse. But so he took a $100 million contract and went to Spotify. So all of his episodes from the first episode in 2010 up until December 1st of this, or I guess November 30th of this year, were on YouTube. And now new episodes are apparently there's video on Spotify, but I haven't figured that out yet. So I listened to it. But it
must be available probably to purchase somewhere.
I would think. I don't know. It's I
mean, they wouldn't take it off the air and then be done with it.
No. It's
if they want to stop showing the programs, they do it for a reason, and that's for money.
Yeah. No, it's I think there is video. I think Spotify has a video player, but it's not the same as YouTube. I mean, YouTube sucks because it's kind of like a communist digital gulag, but at the same time, like, man, like, I've been watching Joe Rogan on YouTube for the last 10 years. You go into the comments, it's it's a whole culture, right? It's a whole community. And hey, man, I'm not blaming him. I'd take that contract, 100 million smackaroos. But,
yeah, I would too. And actually, I think he's a good interviewer.
So do I. He's fantastic.
I have one problem with him. He uses his extreme profanity to excess. You know what I'm saying? He uses the F-bomb to the point that it's not necessary. It's distracting.
I'm guilty. I'm guilty of that, and I know. Yeah, it's
Well, I've heard you use it a couple of times, but not to excess, not like he does. I mean, he doesn't care who he is on there. Women, men, doesn't make any difference to him. He talks the same way. And maybe some people would say, well, to his credit.
Yeah.
I just find it a little, to have that drop right in the middle of an important conversation.
Sure.
Is distracting.
Sure.
But he is a good interviewer.
Yeah. I think that's part of the draw to people, though, is that he can have on,
Yeah. Well, he had on, I was watching not long ago, he had on Dale Earnhardt Jr.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, for the whole show. And he used it repeatedly, but Dale Jr. didn't. Now, Dale Jr. can say, with the best of them, and he does on his own program, but I've never heard him use that phrase.
Yeah.
And so he played pretty straight.
Yeah.
Somebody else I heard on there was an actress. And she joined right in with it.
Yeah. Well, again, I think that's part of the fun, because you got to remember, the show is 10 years old now, so you got to think back to 2010. There was nothing like it. If you wanted to see an interview, you had to watch it on CNN or Fox. And then here comes along Joe Rogan, this guy covered in tattoos, smoking pot, swearing, and it's great conversation. And it was such, it's like rock and roll music taking over the world, not long after World War II. It's like you can watch the evening news, or you have Joe Rogan sitting there with tattoos up and down his arms, a statue of Buddha, smoking pot, and he's talking to Bernie Sanders, right? There's definitely a major attraction of that, right? I get it.
Well, Howard Stern was
Sure. But even that's true.
He may have been before.
He was, yeah. Well, that's true. Howard Stern was, yeah. He was. But I guess you could say maybe it comes in waves, right? You have Howard Stern. He goes on XM and Sirius. But I think podcasts kind of took it over, and that you didn't have to pay for it. It was on YouTube. You could. So who knows? Maybe now that he's gone to Spotify, maybe it will. Maybe a new one will rise. Because after I saw they had on Jacques Vallée, I downloaded the Spotify app and was like, fine, because I have to listen to this. And it was a terrible experience. There were ads. It kept stopping and starting. There was no comment section. There was no, and I was like, I don't know. Maybe I'm clinging to my old ways, but I don't know. It's kind of destroyed it. I think for a show to truly be great, it's just got to be free, and it has to just permeate the internet. When you kind of lock it away into one area, it kind of seals the mat.
Yeah. Delay set some ground rules.
Sure, probably.
He carries enough weight that he probably. I think I heard somewhere that Rogan had been trying to get him on the program for a long time.
Yeah. And
he apparently wouldn't agree to come on, but he finally did. But I would imagine he set some ground rules. He didn't want comments. He didn't want to have to follow up comments, and I don't know. I have seen some shows. I can't remember exactly what now, but you will see the comments were disabled.
Yeah, those suck. Those suck. Those are the worst.
I don't know.
Those are the worst ever.
The long and short of it is like I say, I listened to it. I listened to the audio of it, but I didn't see the video. And if you see the person talking rather than just hearing it gives more depth.
Yeah.
To what they're saying, that mannerisms and the inflection of things, you get more of it. So I'd like to see it. I'd like to see the video of the whole interview. However, the meat of the interview was the last 5, 10 minutes, 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Where he talked about the teal.
Yeah.
Now that he said some other interesting things. that he couldn't get into, or he didn't want to get into, or he didn't want to discuss it. I think that was when he was talking about a piece of metal that was shot off of the, and I think it was in the Washington merry-go-round.
Yeah, the 1950.
July 52.
Yep.
That the fighter
It did hit.
actually shot at the UFO and shot off a piece of metal. Now, I never heard that before.
Me neither.
I had always heard that on the second night, the second weekend, Saturday night, Sunday morning, that one pilot had a number of UFOs to come in and surround him.
Yeah, and they told him to engage.
And then when he radioed his people and asked him what should he do, you know, I mean, he was obviously panicking. You know, what he should do, they seemed somewhat dumbfounded, but apparently, according to Valet, he fired on him.
Yeah.
And they dispersed.
Yeah.
Well, whether he fired on them or whatever, but they dispersed when he started talking to the tower or whatever. And, but if Valet said that they shot a piece of metal off of it, where he became evasive, or where he said he did not want to talk about that.
Yeah.
Obviously, he was saying he knew about it, but he didn't want to talk about it.
Yeah.
Well, I found that strange because he's not tied in with any high security agreements, or he hasn't signed any disclosure agreements. The only thing that I can figure is that it would hurt his sources that he's established over the years.
Sure. Yeah. Maybe
and
he's got an inside
he doesn't want to damage his group of sources.
Yeah.
Which would make sense to me.
Sure. Yeah.
But I'd like to know more about what he does know.
Yeah.
Maybe before he dies, he'll write a book and tell all. But
leave a note.
We'll see.
Yeah.
But anyway, I found that very, very interesting.
Yeah.
So, you know, we're seeing these things come out faster and faster and faster. And I just feel like we're in an area of something is going to break.
It's accelerating.
Now, I don't know what this new administration is going to do. I suspect, and I don't want to get into politics, but I suspect the administration is going to do just what it's told to do.
Yeah, kind of get that vibe.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, get a little bit of that. Yeah, business as usual. Kind of get that vibe.
I think in this case, it's really he's got strings attached to
That's
him.
what I mean. Yeah, status quo.
He's a puppet.
Yeah. I mean, maybe that's how Trump goes out. Maybe if Trump can't overturn it or certify or whatever.
Well, I think the people that are, if there is a ruling class, which seems to be more and more probable.
Yeah.
They don't want to get into that subject.
Yeah. Well,
they don't want it at all. So I think it's probably, you had probably had a better chance with Trump than you would with him, with Biden. But that's, I'm talking out of my hat. I don't have any reason to base that on any fact. It's just my feeling from watching and researching, and we'll see. But that was very interesting, Tommy. I found that to be to be quite interesting.
Yeah.
So we'll see. Things are happening faster. The problem really, is that they could be happening faster now, but throughout the history of modern flying saucers / UFOs, we've seen things that would break, and we thought that there was going to be a big disclosure, and then it was clamped down.
Yeah. It starts
and that's
to...
happened
Yeah.
3 or 4 or more times
Yeah.
in the subject, where you think that somebody's getting ready to say something.
Yeah.
And then something happens. Somebody takes over, somebody in some powerful position says, this is going to end.
Yeah.
And I really believe, as I've written in my book, that I think that the power of the presidency, the administration, to break through with disclosure is dependent upon who the president is and how he is received and viewed by the intelligence community, and perhaps more importantly, the military-industrial complex.
Yeah.
Because, as Valet said, they seem to be calling the shots.
Yeah. 100%. Larry, tell them where they can get your book. I have to use the restroom again. I'm sorry. I've drank so much water, man. Yeah, so for everybody listening, what we were talking about with Battelle Memorial Institute is Jacques Vallée and what's his name? James Fox? Is that the which I had actually tried to contact him like last month. I tried to I tried to get in touch with him because I love his movies Out of the Blue and I Know What I Saw, both about UFOs. I couldn't get in touch with him, and then I wanted to get in touch with Jacques Vallée, and I couldn't get in touch with him either. And then, sure enough, they both show up on Joe Rogan, and I was like, you gotta be kidding me. But, point is for everybody listening, what they were talking about was that apparently Battelle Memorial Institute is the sort of, it's sort of like the kingpin of like UFO materials. It's what Bob Lazar talked about with S4, and he said that he thought EG&G was in charge. Other people think CIA or Air Force OSI or Office of Naval Intelligence. What Jacques Vallée was saying is basically these are all subservient to one entity, and the one entity is something called Battelle Memorial Institute, which is kind of hiding in plain sight, has its tentacles, as Larry said, in all of the major national labs, Sandia, Oak Ridge, Tennessee. And it seems that they are in control of of recovered material, and because of that, none of it is subject to FOIA, Freedom of Information Act requests or declassification, because it's technically private, and it's a private institution, and thus they can hide it under layers of just confidentiality. No one's sworn to any oaths. They don't have to respond to government oversight. It's just a private, which I believe, which is what Larry has hypothesized a lot, is that it's in control of a private contractor or contractors or an overseeing group. But it seems to be like these materials are in the hands of a private contractor, because that's the only way this stuff could stay quiet. And that's what Jacques Vallée said, is that Battelle Memorial Institute has these pieces of metal, have these debris, biological samples, whatever. Apparently it's Battelle Memorial Institute, and they've had this, starting in like the 20s and 30s. And he said that he saw a memo, or that I think Hynek saw, James J. Allen Hynek saw a memo, and it was something about, it was a memo to like the director of the CIA, and if I'm recalling it correctly, it was in like it was in a superior tone, basically talking down to the head of the CIA. And the question arose is like, who the hell talks down to the CIA? Who kicks the CIA around? And what it led to was, it's Battelle Memorial Institute. Like they're above the CIA. Now, how much of this is true, how much of this is wild speculation, as Mr. Holcombe says in his book at the end of every chapter, of course, this is speculation. But for everybody listening that didn't know what we were talking about. Yeah, I kind of agree with it, though. I think that's probably what it is. Probably under a private contractor.
Well, don't get me wrong. I don't think that the way Vallée discussed Battelle is really totally accurate, because it sounded like to me he was saying that Battelle was pulling the strings of all of these things. And I don't think that's true. I think that Battelle is a very highly qualified entity to work with these contractors as a subcontractor, and perhaps has some authority to tell them what they should do and what they shouldn't do. But I don't think he is like a CEO of all of it. I think that he's still a hired subcontractor, and as these others are. But I think they do come to him or come to Battelle. And this is speculation on my part, I admit, but it seems to me to be logical that, he's not going to tell Hannaford in Washington State what to do. He's not going to control them. He's not going to control, or I say he, I mean Battelle, is not going to control what Sandia does, what any of the national labs do, or Oak Ridge, for instance. They may, I don't know why I keep saying he, because there was a Battelle to start the company.
Yeah.
The Institute may make highly pointed suggestions, but I think that they can still be overruled.
Yeah.
Now, I don't, how much that weighs on the scale, I don't know. But anyway, that's my take on it. And there are just too many other powerful people that have been around that wouldn't take counter of that. Our friend we were talking about last time, he sent me some information on James Jesus Angleton. I think Battelle would tell him what to do.
No. I don't think anybody did.
As a matter of fact, not very many people in the CIA knew he even existed. The ones that they did know he cut him a wide berth. They didn't want to have anything to do with it.
Yeah, no, James Jesus Angleton, I don't think anybody told him what to do, including the president.
No.
No. I'm pretty sure, I'm pretty sure he was instrumental in knocking off Kennedy. That's...
But anyway, there was something else I wanted to find out, but I lost my train of thought. But anyway, Angleton is what was it? The name of that book was The Ghost.
Yeah, The Ghost by Jefferson Morley.
Yeah, they
fantastic read.
The author is convinced that he was behind Kennedy's assassination.
Yeah. And
if the CIA was involved in Kennedy's assassination, it would be his direction.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. No, he there's nothing.
I researched that had the savvy to actually pull it off.
Yeah.
And direct it.
Yeah.
He was brilliant and he was nuts.
Yeah.
And I mean, he was director of counterintelligence in the CIA for years and years under Allen Dulles, under I don't know, a number of directors.
Mm-hmm.
And he had direct access into their office.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, he had he and what the hell is his name? Hoover. Who was the J. Edgar Hoover? Yeah, I don't know. I just completely blanked.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, what I was going to say is James Jesus Angleton was buddy with J. Edgar Hoover, and they Hoover would basically kind of give him the keys to the kingdom, and it was that way he could do all of his domestic stuff, and technically it would be. I mean, it was all shadowy and it was all sketchy, but I mean, James Jesus Angleton was asked by someone later on. Was Jack JFK was the hit on Jack an agency job? Okay, or saying in other words, was the JFK assassination carried out by the Central Intelligence Agency? And Angleton, instead of saying no, said the CIA is a big mansion, and I don't know all the rooms. Like, what kind of answer is that? Like, just say no. Just say no. Be like, no. Yeah. What kind of answer is that?
Well, we've had a lot of presidents recently that could have said no.
And they didn't. They all had some sort of weird, sketchy, if I knew, or that's not what they instruct us, or it seems like none of them just flat out say no. They all dance around it in this weird... The fact that they don't just say no immediately, any other answer to me says yes.
That was a great comment by former Donald Rumsfeld when he was on a radio show, and a caller called in and asked, was it true that he attended a meeting on the subject of UFOs? And he said, I can't recall right offhand, but if I had been, it would have been top secret and I couldn't talk about it.
I mean, yeah, the answer's not no, right? It's, or,
And how about the funniest one was George W. Bush, I think, after he left office on, I don't know, I can't remember these talks.
I can't remember W doing an interview. Yeah, I never acted. What did W say about? Are you talking about George W?
Yeah. He was on, what was the talk show host guy? And he tried to pin a lot of presidents down. He had Clinton on the show. He tried to pin him down on UFOs.
Conan?
Huh?
Conan?
It wasn't Brian. It was...
Letterman?
No, it wasn't Letterman. It
Kimmel?
was after Letterman. Maybe it was Kimmel, Jimmy Kimmel. Was he the guy that had the city and mountains in the background of the set? Or,
I don't know. They're all the same.
But I'm not.
They're all the
I'm
same.
not sure.
Not important.
But anyway, would Kimmel have had George W. Bush on? But anyway, so he got into talking to W about UFOs. And W just sort of was laughing it off. And he said, well, Mr. President, if, and I can't recall the exact words, but if, were you briefed at all on UFOs? And he said, I can't talk about that. And sort of grinned at him.
Yeah.
You know, I can't talk about that. And then he goes on to say, which he didn't have to. He said, as a matter of fact, both of my daughters, both of my daughters,
Mm-hmm.
have asked me about that. And he said, Kimmel said, what did you tell him? He said, I didn't tell him anything. So, and this is kind of a light subject, like,
Sure.
you know, in a light way.
Sure.
And then Kimmel went on to say, well, would you tell me if, and I forget exactly what the question was that he asked me, would you tell me if I were to ask you about something or something like that? And Bush looked at him and he said, I'm not telling you nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the audience just kind of exploded and laughed.
Yeah.
So, you know, I mean, those comments are telling. He didn't have to say that.
Yeah.
All he had to say is, I don't know.
Yeah.
But he didn't say that. I mean, what I took from it, he did know.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm kind of in. I kind of think that presidents are read in to a certain extent, but I don't think they have control over it. I don't think they're kept in the dark. I think it's probably like a limited hangout. That's an intelligence term for when you disclose a little bit of something, but make it look like you disclosed everything. So like if I have 10 secrets, I'll tell you 3 of them, and you go, okay, Tommy just told us the secrets, but I told you 3 so that you'd stop looking around for the other 7. I think that presidents are probably let in on like a limited hangout basis. I think
it depends on the president.
Sure. Yeah.
And their standing with the CIA or with the intelligence community. Not just the CIA, but the intelligence community in general.
Sure.
And how they view each president and how much they'll tell them.
Yeah.
You know, Jimmy Carter divulged some classified information, and I forget exactly what it was, but there was a big stink over it. And
oh yeah,
so
was it about the F-117?
Maybe it was a stealth aircraft.
Yeah, I think it was the F-117 Nighthawk.
But that was a pretty big stink over that. So obviously the intelligence community would not be real happy for him to have any in-depth information.
Yeah.
On the other hand, they may have briefed Ronald Reagan in some detail.
Yeah. Well, Reagan seems like he probably played ball, right? Reagan was given out record defense contracts to write the $1 trillion buildup, or I think $5 trillion buildup over like 8 years. I think they liked Reagan. I think Reagan was probably buddy with him.
And Reagan had 2 sightings.
Yeah. Yeah. From his plane. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the one he said was on the ground.
Oh, yeah.
That he saw.
Yeah.
On the ground. And he was late. He and Nancy were late for a cocktail party.
Oh, yeah. When it came out and it said, Yeah.
And he tested when he got there, and Shirley MacLaine was there. Of course, she's, as she thinks about it, and Lucille Ball, she was asking him about it, and Steve Allen, and Steve Allen was a pretty much straight shooter. He was there, and he wanted to talk to Reagan about it. So anyway, I don't know, but so how much presidents know, I think is. I think Nixon knew a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I think he was well in the loop, because keep in mind he was vice president for 8 years.
Yeah, under Eisenhower. Yeah,
who was deeply involved in it.
Yeah.
So, anyway, I sent you a text.
Yeah. You wanted me to look. Yeah, I could never find that.
If you had any knowledge of that event that I was trying to recall, maybe some of your listeners will.
I'll read it out. It's no, because I couldn't find anything, but I will read it out for the listeners. Maybe if anyone can help us. Let me find the text. No, not that one. It is. Here it is. I've been trying to find it. So for anybody listening, if you can help us with this, please do. Drop a link in the comments. Or drop a comment below. I've been trying to find info on a Great Lakes UFO incident I heard some years back. It's not the famous Kinross AFB incident over Lake Michigan. This incident involved a military pilot and navigator sent up to investigate a UFO on radar. Just as the jet broke ground, a problem caused both to eject. As I recall, the navigator was killed, but the pilot survived. Again, as I recall, there was a large body of water just beyond a plowed field near the end of the runway. Investigators found the canopy on the runway, but no jet. The farmer who was outside said he never saw, said he saw and heard nothing. No explosion or crash. Okay, sorry, so you didn't hear anything. The water was searched and nothing. No debris or petroleum slick or anything. And so no, I couldn't find anything on that case. But if anyone listening has,
I don't know where exactly it was. It was on a body of water right off the Great Lake, a cove or something like that. And if they found the canopy on the runway where they ejected the pilot and engineer or navigator ejected. So the canopy was on the runway. There was a farmer that was working in his field, and he had something to say, and that's why I can't remember the story, but it's a very interesting story, that the plane was just breaking ground, and they ejected. So obviously the plane had to crash.
Yeah.
Had nobody flying.
Yeah.
It had to go across a field and into the water, but there was no trace on the water of any jet fuel, any oils of any type, any residue, nothing. Everything was pristine.
Just vanished.
And the jet was never found. So I'd like to. I know that I read about it. I don't know what book it may have been in, whether it was in Above Top Secret. I really need to go back and look through that again. One of the highly recommended books that not many people know about is I'm trying to think. The Government and UFOs is the name of the book by
Leslie Kean? Leslie Kean?
It's by somebody. Swords. Is it Michael Swords?
I don't
Swords
know.
and
I don't know.
I'll think of it in a minute. I know I got it here somewhere because I don't see it right. Wait a minute. Hold
You're
on.
good. You're good. Go look for it. I'm trying to think of not episodes of UFO incidents where they never found anything. And I think a big one is oh, you got it?
Here it is.
UFOs in the Government: A Historical Inquiry by, who is it? Michael and Robert Powell. Michael something and Robert Powell.
It's Michael Swords and Robert Powell, and then a number of foreign scientists.
Mm-hmm.
Michael Swords, I think Swords and Powell both are PhDs. Now, it's a big book.
Yeah.
And it's not cheap. I forget what I paid for it when I got it, but like $35 or something. But it is one of the best research books that doesn't go into any speculation whatsoever. It only goes into facts of each case and identifies the government's mishandling of those cases. It's a hell of a read. I mean, it took me some time to get through it, but I used it. This is in writing my book. That was one of my Bibles. It's well done, and it does examine the actual facts behind many of the well-known cases, and that may be where I found it. I need to go back, but that book's like 1,200 pages or something, and it's hard to find if you don't know names.
Yeah.
To put to it. But that's I'd like to find out more about that case, because it's, especially today when we are getting so much more information on abductions and missing aircraft and, that seem to disappear. A lot of that's coming out into the open now. So, anyway, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm thinking about missing aircraft. Wasn't there that one case in the Gulf of Mexico? Valentage, that was his name. The pilot. He's an amateur pilot.
Yeah.
And he was
that was
in the 70s, I think.
Australia.
Oh, Australia. Why did I think Gulf of Mexico?
Not Australia, but what's his sister island?
New Zealand? Not New Zealand. I know what you're talking about. It's not. Yeah. It's. Yeah. Point is.
It's in that part of. It was in that part of the world.
Yeah. Point is there's a pilot last name Valentage who I believe in like the late 70s was calling back to air traffic control, and there's several minutes of transcript of just him describing this thing flying around, and then finally it's like it's right over me, and then it cuts, and they never found the plane. It just gone.
Yeah, they heard a lot of metal screeching.
Yeah, they heard weird, metal noises, and they heard like weird distortions, like and just like they never, and then it cut off, and they never found the plane. Divers never found it. But yeah, the final seconds, there's like, it sounds like an alien craft, and it's just like, and then it disappears off the face of the planet, just gone. What the hell?
That's a strange one.
What about that Malaysian flight from like 2014? Remember MH370? Did they ever find any pieces of that? You think that was snagged?
I think they did. I think they found like an elevator or a flap.
Okay.
off the wing or something that had a serial number on it that identified it as part of that plane. Now, but I could be wrong. I heard that it washed up on the beach, and I don't know why a bigger issue hasn't been made of that.
Yeah. I think I know what you're talking about. Yeah, it was like several continents over, but something washed up somewhere. It got caught in an ocean current, and it just popped up somewhere else.
Yeah, you know the event you mentioned in the Great Lakes. That was a Scorpion jet that was sent up to investigate a UFO. And I can't recall the details of that, except they lost contact with the pilot who had the thing in sight.
Mm-hmm.
And at some point they lost contact with the pilot. And that's well documented.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's well documented. I just can't remember the particular details of that because I didn't put it into my book because it didn't really relate to back to presidents.
Mm-hmm.
But well, I'm sure it did, but I couldn't find any connection. But that plane vanished.
Yeah.
It was never found.
Yeah.
And aircraft just don't crash into the sea.
Yeah.
Even though it's Great Lakes can be rougher than the ocean, and in some places deeper than some places in the ocean. Without leaving a trace, without leaving oil slicks or some residue that will, I mean, a plane crashes, a jet crashes into the ocean at speed. It's like hitting a brick wall.
Yeah, no, it rips apart the plane.
All the pieces.
Yeah.
It's not like you see in the movies that the plane dives down, goes underwater, and settles down on the bottom.
Yeah.
It's, that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
So they couldn't find any traces of that plane. So there's two instances we're talking about where you had aircraft that went missing, legitimately went missing without any trace whatsoever. And there are others.
I don't know, man. It gets a little creepy.
Well, yeah. Well, of course, at one time we had the pilots were told to shoot them down.
Yeah, that's true.
But they got over that pretty quickly after they lost a number of aircraft and pilots.
Yeah. Yeah, I've always wanted to know, I would love to hear about like a whistleblower or something. I bet that somewhere there is a bunch of photos, satellite photos of UFOs. That's what I want to know, is like, I want to see, because I mean, if we're capturing these cities, someone, somewhere, some spy satellite over the last 6 decades, one of them's got to have just snapped a perfectly crisp photo, right? Because I mean, you can, when you look at satellite photos from like the 60s, you can see like passenger airliners and stuff, and they're just right there, crisp as day. Someone's got to have somewhere, someone's got to have some perfect picture of, right, like the Phoenix Lights or something, which is weird because the spy satellite did go offline during the Phoenix Lights in March 13th, 1997. Someone somewhere has satellite photos up, and that's one thing I always think about. Is like you never hear about those in conspiracies or something, satellite photos, but there's got to be a satellite photo.
I don't think there's any question about it, but you're not going to get them.
Yeah, I mean, where the hell are you going to? Yeah,
there's a number of them.
Yeah, that. Yeah.
The NORAD.
Oh yeah,
we talked about that. I think the last time I was on with you, that NORAD tracks these things all the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what they do.
Yeah. No,
They have the most powerful radars, the best, and newest, and finest equipment, and that's what they do.
Yeah.
And you're right. If you can identify somebody walking down the street from a satellite,
Yeah.
You could certainly take a picture of the UFO, as long as whoever they are, allowed us to do such.
Yeah.
We don't know.
Yeah.
Tommy, we're getting to an area where we're talking about things,
Wild speculation,
in the that could be so incomprehensible to us that whomever these other people are, if they're only 10,000 years ahead of us, not to say a million years, that what they can do and how they operate, for lack of a better word, could be just beyond our understanding and comprehension. I mean, look, what do you think we're going to be 100 years from now?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they don't even need to be 10,000 years. They could be 100 years past us. And it would be... I mean, think 100 years ago. Think about sending an F-22 or an F-35 back to 1920. I mean, Babe Ruth had been traded from the Red Sox 2 years prior. And imagine you send a B-2 bomber over some town. They're going to drop to their knees and praise it. But if you're 10,000, or what Arthur C. Clarke, any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. I mean, yeah. I mean, it could just be, we might be looking at the wrong thing. We might be looking for craft, but it's not even craft. Like, it might be something else, Like, craft might be like the on the lower end of technologically advanced aliens. Like, true advanced aliens, it would just be like their consciousness. Like, you wouldn't even know they're here. It would be an awareness, some ethereal, like quantum looping, just be here and then it would disappear and there'd be no physical trace. I mean, it could be made of dark matter or dark energy. I mean, it could be so advanced that it could be sitting in the room with me and I wouldn't know. Like that, that's a possibility. Like, look at us compared to llamas. Like, it might be that, right?
Yeah, I don't know. I have some theories, but they're by no way proven at all. Well, first of all, I believe without question that we're not dealing with one entity.
Mm-hmm.
Or race, if you will, but a number of them at different levels of advancement. As an example, I think that the aircraft, the film of the Tic Tac and the other, what do they call that?
The gimbal?
Rotator,
the gimbal?
Gimbal. The gimbal. And the fast
Go
flyer.
Fast. Yeah, Go Fast.
Those three films. I think they are probably of a very, very advanced, many years advanced race of beings. On the other hand, there's no question in my mind that the Sirocco, New Mexico event, was not an extraterrestrial event. But my guess is that they were far less advanced
Mm-hmm.
than these others.
Mm-hmm.
They were probably primitive in comparison to these others,
Sure.
far more advanced than we are. But maybe they had just learned space travel and were only 500 years more advanced than we are.
Yeah.
You see?
Yeah.
And the reason I say that is because that craft didn't operate like some of these other craft do, which operate silently, do maneuvers from here in the blink of an eye to say, where the Sirocco vehicle, whatever, actually had flame coming out of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It had bursts of fire coming out of the bottom.
It came up and it turned some rocks, sand to glass and all that before it took off at a rapid speed, I think. So that indicates to me that there were two distinct levels of advancement.
Mm-hmm.
One far more advanced than the other, and there are probably numerous others out there somewhere that are not coming here to look around, but are at various levels of development.
Yeah.
So, for what that's worth.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Larry, my mom's calling me for dinner, so let's wrap this one up, and I'm gonna email you or text you. Let's do another one, and I want to talk about the Eisenhower UFO meetings.
Yeah, that'd be fine. Just let me know, and when are you going to bring Bethany on here?
Oh, I will ask because she wants to meet you. Yeah, she will be so happy you asked. I'll
apologize to her about the book.
No, don't worry about it.
I didn't have any. I have one.
Don't worry about it.
And as soon as I get my order in, which they say is shipped, but I've yet to have seen it. So as soon as I get that in, I'll get one to her.
I'll get her to come on with you, man.
Up to you, and you'll get it to her.
Yeah. Let's plan one for January, and we'll get her on.
Okay. Make it at least a week after the 10th.
Okay.
Because I'm finishing up this dental surgery that I've been having.
Sure.
And the last one I had me pretty miserable for about 3 or 4 days, and I've got the last one coming up on the 10th. So
okay,
I'll need about a week to recuperate.
Okay, well let's shoot for that then. I'll shoot you a text, and we'll do one with Bethany, and we'll get into the UFOs and Eisenhower and alien briefings, and I'll send you a link when this one's up. But
very good. Well, have yourself a very, very Merry Christmas and
you beat me to
Happy New Year and all that stuff.
You beat me to it. I was gonna say I won't see you, so a very Merry Christmas and Happy New Year's. But you stole my thunder, Larry. But same to you, sir. And maybe 2020 ends with a mass UFO sighting. That's what I'm holding out for.
Okay.
Over every city during the countdown, the New Year's countdown, I want the motherships to arrive.
I got you.
That's what I'm hoping for. Larry Holcombe, author of Presidents and UFOs. The link will be in this top comment and in the description. One of my favorite UFO books. Very fascinating. And it's fun. Mr. Holcombe, I'll see you. I'll send you a link when this one's up, all right?
God bless, and see you shortly.
Yeah, God bless too. Take care.
Bye now.
Bye-bye.